أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما نافعا اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه Rabbi şrahli sadri ve yessirli emri ve hlul uqdeten min lisani yefkahu kavli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Reflections on the Risale-i Nur by Bediuzzaman Said Nursi podcast series. This is Mustafa Tuna. You can listen to the episodes of this series wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch our recordings on YouTube at the channel Reflections RN. You can also access both the audio and video versions of the recordings at the website www.reflections-rn.org. In this episode, inshallah, we will continue reading and reflecting upon the 22nd word. The 22nd word is about demonstrations of God's existence, oneness, and some attributes. This starts with a story. We begin the treatise with a story in which we imagine two friends who take a bath in a pool, lose all their senses, and suddenly find themselves in a country, and they start observing their environments. And one of them, who was smart, fortunate, recognizes that this place must have an owner, and their well-being in that place and potentially in another place that is indicated by the signs around depends on their ability to recognize and live in accordance with the will of the owner of this country. The other friend, however, is stubborn and he doesn't want to recognize the ruler. So the fortunate friend in this story starts to explain to the unfortunate, stubborn person why there should be an owner. So this is the story, and this is the first section of the treatise. In the second section of the treatise, we will be reflecting upon the realities that are indicated in the story, but we are still covering this story. And we read through, the fortunate friend, when he provides explanations to the stubborn friend, he calls them demonstrations of God's, or demonstrations that there is an owner to this place. We read through the first 6 demonstrations, and inshallah we will continue with the 7th one. So Bismillah. 7. Burhan, 7th demonstration. Ey arkadaş gel. Şimdi bu cüz'iyatı bırakıp saray şeklindeki bu acayip alemin eczalarının birbirine karşı olan vaziyetlerine dikkat edeceğiz. In the first 6 demonstrations, we mostly looked at particular objects, if you will, specific things in this country, or if we were talking about the reality of these things, we would say parts of the cosmos. Now we are going to change course and look at other things. Oh friend, come. Now we will leave these particulars and pay attention to the positions that the parts of this amazing realm, which is shaped like a palace, take vis-a-vis each other. It is not essential, but it might be helpful to note that the words particular and part in this sentence are not randomly used. They are terms of logic, and Ustad Nursi was a master of logic, and he especially used these terms, part, particular, and then whole and universal, juz'i, kulli, in specific ways, in very insightful ways. And the concept of particular here refers to something, a part of the cosmos, or something in this country that manifests in and of itself the qualities of the whole. So a part that manifests the qualities of the whole, that we will call a particular. It is composed of two things. One is the part itself, the thing itself, and the second is these qualities that are manifest on the whole and simultaneously on the part. So this is important because once we recognize the particularity of things around us in the universe, in our world, we can infer from them about the attributes that they carry and project that inference to the entire cosmos. Now, this is a detail for this sentence. It has its own place, and it's a very important aspect of Ustad Nursi's thought. Just as a side note, so that we recognize that when he says particulars, he doesn't mean just things over there, but things over there in the sense that everything manifests, in a sense, all, but more obviously at least some and many aspects or attributes or properties of the whole cosmos. So let's put that aside and continue. Oh friend, come. Now we will leave these particulars and pay attention to the positions that the parts of this amazing realm, which is shaped like a palace, take vis-a-vis each other. Now we are going to look at relations, interactions among things. İşte bak, bu alemde o derece intizamla külli işler yapılıyor ve umumi inkılaplar oluyor ki adeta bütün bu saraydaki mevcut taşlar, topraklar, ağaçlar, her bir şey birer faili muhtar gibi bütün bu alemin nizamat-ı külliyesini gözetip ona göre tevfik-i hareket ediyor. Birbirinden en uzak şeyler birbirinin imdadına koşuyor. Here look, once again, the secret of being able to recognize what's going on in this country, in this story, and what's going on in this cosmos, which is like a country or a city or a palace, is first and foremost to look with the intention to see. If we look with the intention to not see, we will not see. There are many experiments about this. One quick experiment that we used to do is you ask a friend ask a friend to read the brand name of his or her watch. So now most people don't carry watches any longer, but assume that your friend carries a watch on his or her wrist, and ask them to look and to tell the brand name and to read the brand name. So they will look and read the brand name and then turn to you and tell what it is, and then ask what time it is. They won't be able to tell you. I mean, 90% of the time, they won't be able to tell you because they were looking at the brand name. Although it's a very small space and they're next to each other, your friend was not paying attention to the time and therefore they did not recognize it. So the beginning of being able to recognize the signs of creation in the cosmos, in this land, first is to look. Here, look. Universal works are being carried out in this realm, and general transformations are taking place with such degree of orderliness that, as though all rocks, soil, trees, and everything in this palace were observing the universal orders of this entire realm, each like a volitional active agent, and they are acting accordingly. Things that are furthest away from one another are rushing to each other's aid. Universal works are being carried out in this realm. Things are happening, and they're happening everywhere. People have mistaken a ramification or a manifestation of this as what they call natural laws, the law of gravity, right? There may be very distant and small exceptions that physicists now identify, but in general, this law of gravity is universal. There is gravity on the moon, there is gravity on Earth, there is gravity on the sun, there is gravity in the Milky Way, there is gravity beyond the Milky Way. And it's not only the Earth pulling things down so that there's weight and we don't fly away, from the Earth. It's not only that. It is how all these celestial objects pull each other. So that's a universal law. It's happening on a universal scale. When spring comes in the world that we can observe in our environment, there is a universal transformation. Life is popping up everywhere. Right? So universal works are being carried out in this realm. And general transformations are taking place. So we should try to think about this. We are not, we are observing the cosmos, we are observing the universe, we are observing this land that these two friends found themselves in. We are observing it, but we are not observing it as a stagnant object, a still object. It is the universe or the cosmos is not a still object. It's a motion picture. It keeps changing. And it keeps changing. When we look, we start to recognize that there are patterns to these changes. There are regularities. There are commonalities. There are aspects of change that we observe everywhere. So universal works are being carried out in this realm, and general transformations are taking place with such a degree of orderliness. Now, if it happened once and it happened in an orderly way, the same apparent occurrence leading to the same apparent following occurrence. I didn't want to use the terms cause and effect, but metaphorically we can refer to them, right? That the same causes are leading to the same effects. What we see as causes are not causes. That's why I don't want to use it. But at the end of the day, there is a causer of those causes too, and because that causer wants them to sequence or happen in the same pattern, they appear with a regularity. Now, if this happened once or in a couple of places, perhaps we could attribute it to something in that space or at that time, or maybe coincidence. But when it happens all the time, everywhere, we cannot but recognize that there is a rule, there is a law that is effective everywhere, and laws in and of themselves cannot do anything, right? All countries have constitutions, they have criminal laws, but the criminal law as in and of itself, as this collection of words that perhaps is printed or is preserved something in the cyberspace, it will not be able to do anything in and of itself. You have to have executors of the law, right? So once we recognize that there's this law, this pattern that's happening everywhere, then we immediately recognize that there is an executor of law. There is power everywhere. There is power that is acting upon things in accordance with a centralized will, with such a degree of orderliness that, as though all rocks, now we want to see this in this country that we are imagining. And what is in this country? There are rocks, soil, trees, and everything in this palace, or we are imagining it as a palace. It's as though they are all observing the universal orders of this entire realm, each like a volitional active agent. Volitional active agent, that is, as though they are doing what they are doing with some internal internal force, internal power, internal strength, and it's as though they are using that strength with their own volition. and they're acting accordingly. They're acting, according to this universal law with their own volition. So imagine 8 billion people and one law, and 8 billion people are simultaneously abiding by the law with no exception. With no exception regarding their volition or regarding their capabilities. Everybody in this huge, massive human nation is abiding by the law that says, say, lift your right hand at 10 a.m. every day. When it's 10 a.m., without skipping anything, everybody lifts their hands 10 a.m. Things that are furthest away from one another are rushing to each other's aid. So they are doing what they're supposed to do, and they're not doing it alone. They are also doing this in a way that implies or indicates that they know one another. They are not just randomly moving. I mean, they're not just randomly moving, even though that random movement is according to a law. Right? So let's say sometimes they have these little toys that you wind and put on the floor, and they keep moving around. Let's say that we have 10 of those toys, and each of those 10 toys are constructed in such a way that they have they make a 30-degree angle to the right as they move. So they rotate right to the right with a 30-degree angle. You put all of them on the floor, and they start, and they will keep moving, but they will keep moving according to the same law, but they will keep moving without attention, without regard for one another. They will hit each other, they will move away. They are not going to do something together, right? So when we look at this country, we are still in the representation, the story or the cosmos, when we look, what we see is that everything is moving according to a general law or according to general laws, and at the same time they appear to be rushing to each other's assistance. And not only that, they are doing this for things that are far away from them. And when I say far away, or when we say far away, we should not just imagine, between the world and somewhere 5 million light years away. From the point of view of me as the it's a human being on the earth, there's a huge distance, and things are doing that. We have talked about this before, right? The carbon and the nitrogen and whatever else that is in my body or in the body of everybody who's listening to this, or in the bodies of every living being on earth, they were cooked at some point in the cauldron of some star, and over millions of light years they traveled to where they are now, and they are providing that service to the body that they are included in their inside right now. But this can be even easier to observe from the point of view of the tiny molecule, water molecule, let's say, tiny water molecule that is somewhere in a reservoir in the city that I live. I am very far away, very far. Right? But it is as though when I'm thirsty, that water molecule found its way all the way through the pipes under the ground and came out of the faucet, and I put it in a cup and drank. And now in my body, it is fulfilling the exact function that I needed to fulfill. It's amazing. It's amazing. Now, I recognize that some people may say, so what? I mean, the water molecule is not, did not walk through all those pipes to come to you. It was a matter of gravity. It was pumped. Somebody laid those pipes in place. Somebody collected the water in the reservoir, treated it. Somebody made that faucet, and you went and turned the faucet on. That's how the water molecule came. The water molecule did not do this itself. And that's exactly our point here, right? Because when we imagine the water molecule coming from the reservoir to my body, we are imagining, or we are noticing with the eye of our mind, that there was an agency involved in this. Some people, some entities, perhaps the city administration, devised this, built it, maintains it, operates it, and regulates it. And that's how this is happening. This is what makes sense to the mind, right? Okay. How about rain evaporating from the ocean and being carried with the clouds to a plain where there are trees and those trees need the water? It did not happen by itself either. The water molecules did not fly into air and move with the cloud. The wind did not push those clouds. There is planning, will, regulation, maintenance, organization, installment, creation in all of this too. There's agency in all of this too. Now, you may all have seen these cartoons that they make in order to explain to children how things work, say how the human body works. We imagine, say, two tiny kids shrinking so much that they shrink to the size of a molecule or a cell, and then somehow they get into the vein, and then now they are traveling in the vein, and they see all around like these what's in the blood? White blood cells and red blood cells and plasma, nutrition, oxygen molecule, hydrogen, carbon dioxide. That's things, right? They see all of these things, but for what's happening there to make sense to the small children who are watching it in order to understand what's happening in the body, right? They personify, give personality to all those things. They put eyes, they put mouths, they put some noses, ears on them, especially eyes and mouths, so that they can see and they can talk, right? So the red blood cell comes running to the lung, comes running to the lung and takes the oxygen atom, and then runs to the cell that is somewhere on the toenail and gives oxygen to it, so that that cell can use that oxygen, and then it thanks to the red blood cell and gives back carbon atoms to it, and then the red blood cells runs through another runway to the lung again, so on and so forth. Now it's as though all of these things, all of these cells have personality, can see, hear, talk, have will, have emotions, have awareness. They recognize one another. They talk with each other. They ask for help. They listen to that request and go do what they need to do, bring it back, and they thank each other, and they all work in harmony. Now, of course, this is not the case. None of those cells has eyes or ears or mouth or awareness in one sense. in a higher realm, in the alim malakut and alim emir, there might be a sort of awareness. There are angels that are appointed to all these physical objects that do not have their own awareness, but there are angels that are aware of them, and that present their gratitude to God and so on and so forth. But that's a different question. That in and of itself, that red blood cell or the white blood cell or the plasma or whatever, right? None of them has any awareness or power. Now that's the thing. All of these things are easy to imagine. Easy to grant, right? We recognize that they don't have eyes, they don't have ears, they don't have mouth, they don't have awareness, they don't have so on and so forth. Then we need to say they don't have power either, because they don't. That cartoon also gives the impression that this thing has some kind of power coming from inside, internal power that mobilizes it. But no, that's not the case either. The red blood cell does not have any power. The red blood cell does not recognize the lung or the tiptoe. Then where is the power coming from? Who knows both the lung and the toenail? Somebody must do this. Somebody must know it. In the case of water coming from the reservoir to my faucet, we imagined a city administration that, once again, conceptualized, designed, built, is operating and regulating and maintaining this whole thing. This cosmos, this universe, is like a city too. Whatever is happening in it has to have agents. Okay, but when we look, what we see is that it is as though all these things are doing what they are doing in accordance with a universal law, and they are rushing to each other's assistance. They are helping one another to fulfill their functions. They are working together as though they have a volition, right? As though they are volitional active agents. Fa'al muhtar. As though they have the ability to choose what to do and what not to do, as though they have the knowledge of what leads to what. But again, we know that that's not the case. So what we learn from this is that there is volition in this whole thing. There is volition involved in this whole process at some point, somewhere. Well, we don't see it. We don't see it. So from the earlier demonstrations, then we know that, well, in that case, we know that it exists. We don't see it. That means it is somewhere where we don't see it. It is a hidden hand. It is a hidden hand. İşte bak, gaybten acip bir kafile çıkıp geliyor. Merkepleri ağaçlara, nebatlara, dağlara benzerler. Başlarında birer tablayı erzak taşıyorlar. İşte bak, bu tarafta bekleyen muhtelif hayvanatın erzaklarını getiriyorlar. Haşiye, hayvanatın erzakını taşıyan nebatat ve eşcar kafileleridir. Here, look again. An amazing convoy is coming out of the unseen. Their mounts are like trees, plants, and mountains. They each carry trays of provision on their heads. Here, look, they are bringing the provisions of various animals waiting on this side. And we have a side note here, points to the convoys of plants and trees that bear the provisions of most animals. So I was thinking in a more complicated way, right? I was thinking about the cells in the body, etc. But this is even more obvious, and that is a really beautiful aspect of the Risale-i Nur, the treatises of light, that the books that we are reading. They bring the examples from the most obvious, from what is right before us, in front of our eyes. And that's the Qur'an too. That's what the Qur'an does too. The Qur'an gives us examples. from what is most obvious, most self-evident to us. Don't you see the stars, right? Don't you see the moon? Don't you see the sun? Don't you see the mosquito? Don't you see the the grape, the date, the tree? All these things, the rain, all these things are things that surround us human beings throughout our lives. And also amazing that these are the things that apply to all human beings from the beginning of time to the end of time. So it's not talking about, don't you see the cell phone? Don't you see don't you see how the airplane is flying in the air? How it is floating or hanging in the air? No, it says, don't you see the bird, the eagle, for instance, how it is floating in air? Yes, you see the bird, you see the eagle, you see the hawk, whatever bird it is, where you live. An amazing convoy is coming out of the unseen. So imagine a convoy. So when we imagine convoys, what we imagine is, people walking, but or they are riding animals. But this is not a convoy of people. This is a convoy of, their mounts are like trees, plants, and mountains. So some things, what are they? Some things, they have mounted trees, plants, and mountains. And they each carry trays of provision on their heads. So these are trees that are carrying trays of provision on their heads. These are mountains that are carrying, say, mines, minerals, that are another kind of provision for the humankind. These are plants that are carrying green leaves that we eat and we are provided, or animals eat. Here, look, they are bringing the provisions of various animals waiting on this side. So they started from on that side and they're coming to this side. So these point to the convoys of plants and trees that bear the provisions of most animals. Is that not the case? Right? It is as though the cherry tree knows the birds that will fly through and land on its branches and, peck on the cherry and eat a little bit and get the nutrition, the sugar and other minerals and whatnot, and that's in there. Or it's as though the cherry tree knows that these birds want to eat insects, and it brings these cherries that the insects like, and insects come and start eating the cherries, and then the birds come and peck on the insects and eat the insects. It's as though the cherry tree knows the bird, or the insect knows the bird. Or it's as though the bird knows the cherry tree, because then it will provide a service to the cherry tree by taking the pit and flying and planting it somewhere else, so that this cherry tree can continue its the species of the cherry trees can continue its existence. Subhanallah. Now, once again, we need to break through that glass wall that has been erected before all of us with what is called science, that has since, before that too, but especially the 19th century, that has been claiming that matter has force, inherent force, that is doing something, and all these things can be explained with coincidence or some wishy-washy concept like nature. But of course, going back to our example of this cartoon where we imagine the red blood cells as, persons, etc., we know that that's not the case. There is no such thing as nature, and nothing that's created has inherent power. So then the trees don't have inherent power, the plants don't have inherent power, the mountains don't have inherent power, they don't know anybody, they don't know anything. But at the same time, regularly, every year, at this time when the birds pass by, the cherry tree blooms and then produces its fruits. Of course, it doesn't do it. It is made to do it. It is being caused to do it. Right? And that's the point. The cherry tree does not have the ability to do anything. It does not know chemistry. It does not know physics. It does not know how to take those nutrients from the ground and turn them somehow into sweet, delicious, beautiful looking balls. That doesn't happen. Hem de bak, bu kubbede o azim elektrik lambası onlara ışık verdiği gibi bütün taamlarını öyle güzel pişiriyor. Yalnız pişirilecek taamlar bir dest-i gaybi tarafından birer ipe takılıp ona karşı tutuluyor. Also, look at that tremendous electric lamp on this dome. It both gives them light and so beautifully cooks all of their food. Only that the foods to be cooked are each being attached to a string and held to it by an unseen hand. O azim elektrik lambası güneşe işarettir. That tremendous electric lamp points to the sun. And the second side note, ip ve ipe takılan taam ise ağacın ince dalları ve leziz meyveleridir. The string and the food items attached to the string are the delicate tree branches and their delicious fruits. Also, look at that tremendous electric lamp on this dome. So we are imagining this place that the two friends found themselves in like a palace. And the palace has a domed ceiling. And the friends turn to the dome, and what they see there is a tremendous lamp. Tremendous. Huge. So huge that it illuminates the entire palace. Now, if he said it illuminates the entire city, that may have been more difficult to imagine, but a palace, a closed domed place, and there's a lamp on the dome, it illuminates the entire palace. Now, of course, the reality of this is that the firmament is like a dome, and we have this really tremendous lamp over there that illuminates the entire face of the earth. It both gives them light and so beautifully cooks all of their food. So remember, things are doing things on a regular basis as though they are following a law, and they are not doing this randomly. They are doing what they are doing in a way that provides assistance to other things. This lamp on the dome is amazing. It is giving light to all of us, but perhaps even more amazing, it is also cooking their food. Lamp there, it's sending its rays of light, and those rays of light, as though they have fingers and hands and etc., they are cooking food. Only that the foods to be cooked are each being attached to a string and held to it by an unseen hand. So it's enough for the material to be held to it, and it cooks it. So the tremendous electric lamp, of course, points to the sun. And the string and the food items attached to the string are the delicate tree branches and their delicious fruits. Subhanallah, right? So if it were not for the sun, thinking within the realm of dominion, thinking within the material world, right? If it were not for the sun, there would be no energy, there would be no life on this earth. I mean, if you think about it, yes, there's energy that's coming from the inner heat of the earth, but the energy that we use as human beings and as living beings, right? There might be exceptions, exceptional living beings that live under the ground and somehow don't benefit from the energy that comes from the sun, but 99% of the living beings, including those in the oceans, right? We benefit from the sun. The carbon that we burn, the oil that we extract, the natural gas that we extract, right? That is the energy that came from the sun to earth, stored up, right? It is stored up in the carbon molecules of the plants that lamp cooked, or that synthesized carbon from the air with that light, and then they use that energy to hold the carbon atoms together, and now we are extracting that energy from there and using it. Subhanallah. All the food that we eat, whether it is animal origin or plant origin, and all the food that animals eat, whether it is animal origin or plant origin, it is being cooked with this tremendous lamp. Now, this tremendous lamp does not know me, does not know you, does not know the elephant in Africa, does not know the tiger in India. It does not know the polar bear. It does not know the ant. It does not know the bee. It does not know the plane tree. It does not know the poplar. It does not know the pine. It does not know any of us. But somehow, what it does benefits all of us. And it does not skip a day. It does what it is supposed to be doing for us to benefit from it, without skipping a day, without skipping a moment. How is that so? How is that so? And who is holding all these little fine threads, these strings, to it? It's amazing. The tree holds its fine string branch, holds its branch in front of the sun, and somehow these delicious bolls start to grow on it. Oranges. They are huge. I mean, compared to the thickness of the branch on which it grows, when we look, it's huge. If I were that branch, I wouldn't make this orange because it's going to be burdensome on me. It may even cause me to break, and that happens to some fruits. Apples, grapefruits, pear. Or the tiny string that is crawling on the ground of a pumpkin. It can grow up to like hundreds of pounds. The tiny string is just holding it there, and then the light that comes from the sun is cooking it, making it, building it. The string and the food items attached to the string are the delicate tree branches and their delicious fruits. How is that happening? How does the sun and the string cooperate on such a regular basis, and in a way that gives the impression that they know one another? How is that happening? This coming one, I find really amazing. It is really touching. Bu tarafa da bak. Bu biçare, zayıf, nahif, kuvvetsiz hayvancıklar. Nasıl onların başı önünde latif gıda ile dolu iki tulumbacık takılmış. İki çeşme gibi yalnız o kuvvetsiz mahluk onu ağzına yapıştırması kafidir. İki tulumbacık ise validelerin memelerine işarettir. Look in this direction too. Look in this direction too. These helpless, weak and frail tiny animals with no power. Look how two tiny pumps filled with subtle nutrition are set up in front of their heads like two fountains, and it is enough for that weak creature merely to latch onto it. As for the two tiny pumps, they point to the breasts of mothers. Now, for human beings and monkeys and some animals, it is two pumps. For some animals, it's 8 pumps, more than 2. But there are these tiny pumps that are attached right in front of the head of this helpless creature, that had it not been for that for those two pumps, right, brought right in front of their mouth, they would not survive. They would not survive half a day. And when they're born, they know only one thing. They know how to route with their mouths, opening and closing and trying to latch onto something, and they know how to latch and suckle. That's the only thing that they know. That's the only way through which, especially if you are thinking about human babies, through which they can they can take the nutrition that they need for their survival. And look at this, that exact precise thing that they need is right in front of their mouth. What is amazing if this is not amazing? I had watched a video of how a kangaroo is born, and obviously kangaroos are not born fully developed, even as babies. They're born like this tiny, maybe finger-like creature, and then once they're born, they know two things. One, they have a very powerful nose that smells the source of something that attracts them, and they have two hands that they can use to climb. They hold on to the fur of their mother and climb into the sack. And then once they reach that sack, so it's a long pathway for this tiny creature. It's born, and it looks like it does not have any consciousness, anything. It's like almost like a unaware insect. The level of awareness that it has is like that you would expect from a shrimp or something. But it does exactly what it has to do, not needs to do, but has to do in order to survive. If it did anything else, it would not survive. There's only one thing that it can do, and there's only one thing, one environment where it can survive. And as soon as it's born, that environment is placed in front of it, and it is equipped with the skills that match what it needs or what it has to have in order to survive in that environment. It holds onto the fur and climbs into the sack, and there is this pump filled with subtle nutrition. It latches and stays latched for a long time. Its development continues in there. Now, does the mother kangaroo know what this tiny baby will need? Let's assume that the mother kangaroo knows what this tiny baby will need when it is born. Does the mother kangaroo have any power, any intelligence, any ability to make a breast, a nipple there for the tiny kangaroo baby to latch on and suckle? It does not. The mother kangaroo does not have knowledge of this and has no control on its own, on the evolution, development, growth, the form and the functions of its body. I mean, we know this from our own example. We as human beings that have the highest level of evolution in the creation, we don't have that kind of power. How is that happening then? How is that happening that as soon as this tiny baby comes to the world, those pumps filled with nutrition are rushing to their aid? Rushing to their aid immediately, because the baby cannot survive depending on the baby even an hour, and the environment even an hour or half a day or a day. Immediately the pumps are there. How is that happening? Do the pumps know the baby? Does the milk in the pumps know the baby? Do the molecules in the milk know the baby, because once they are in the baby's mouth and stomach, they are going to do the exact same thing that they have to do for the baby's survival too. What's happening here? There is evolution, right? There is power and there is evolution. That's obvious. But when we look carefully, we see that neither the evolution nor the power is inside or on what we are observing, what is before our eyes. Then the obvious conclusion from this is that, and also one more thing, and it's not only in one thing, it's everywhere. Everywhere. Everywhere we observe the existence of volition and power, and nowhere do we observe that volition and power existing on the thing that we observe. Then what is happening here? There's only one conclusion, that there is a hidden hand, that volition exists, that power exists, but it does not exist in the thing that we are observing. It is acting upon the thing that we are observing. It's a hidden hand that's acting upon this whole palace, that's disposing this whole palace from outside. Elhasıl, bütün bu alemin bütün eşyası birbirine bakar gibi birbirine yardım eder. Birbirini görür gibi birbirine el ele verir. Birbirinin işini tekmil için birbirine omuz omuza veriyor. Bel bele verip beraber çalışıyorlar. Her şeyi buna kıyas et, tadad ile bitmez. In conclusion, all things in this entire realm help each other as though they face each other, as though they are looking at each other. They hold hand in hand with each other as though they see each other. They come shoulder to shoulder with each other in order to complete each other's affairs, and they work side by side. Compare everything to this. It will not finish by counting. So whoever said that the foundation of life is struggle, or struggle defines life or existence, is in terrible mistake. Yes, there are examples of what appears like struggle. The cheetah wants to eat the deer runs away, so the deer and the cheetah are struggling, the cheetah to catch it, the deer to run away. It appears to be that, right? But that's only a tiny appearance of the reality that's out there. And even that, if you were to pierce through the appearance and see the reality, is actually cooperation. Because ultimately, some of the deer are caught by the cheetah. And those deer usually are the weaker, the older, the frail in the pack, in the herd. So the herd is being purified in a sense, or strengthened by the cheetah, right? So the cheetah is helping the herd, if not the individual deer that it ate, it's helping the herd that it is eating from. But also, the body of that particular deer that the cheetah ate worked for, let's say, 5.5 years in order to build up that muscle and bone mass in order to provide its provision to the cheetah. Now you'll say, well, that's not what the deer did, or that's not why the deer did it, right? I know that's not why the deer did it, because the deer does not do anything for a cause, for a why. Right? Beyond some, simple, practical intelligence, it does not have the intelligence to think about this. And again, that's the point. This is happening. What I observed is happening there is this object here that is growing mass for 5 years, and this cheetah is coming and eating it, and this is necessary for the survival of the cheetah. As though this object here grew that mass to help the cheetah. So even what appears like a struggle is actually cooperation. And then think about all the other things that do look like cooperation. Koala eat eucalyptus, and eucalyptus grows, and it survives on eucalyptus. There's nothing else that's going to provide what it needs. And the eucalyptus grows and stretches out its hands and presents the koala with its leaves. Panda needs bamboo. Bamboo grows. Right now, I am attributing agency to the bamboo when I said the bamboo grows. And this is the glass wall that we need to break through, right? The reality of it, on a day-to-day usage, because of the dictates of language, we say this, and it's fine as long as we understand the reality of it. But the reality of it is that the bamboo does not grow, because at the point that the bamboo started growing, the bamboo was not even there. It was a tiny sprout or a tiny seed, but the bamboo is being made to grow. It is made to grow, so it grows, and there comes the panda, eats it, and the bamboo does not struggle with the panda. The bamboo just keeps refreshing the leaf source, the nutrition source. Keeps serving the table. So we need to, again, this is a paradigm shift. We need to shift from that paradigm of struggle to a paradigm of cooperation. Things are acting in this universe as though they see one another, as though they are running to each other's assistance, as though they work shoulder to shoulder to preserve, if you will, the overall system, right? As though the deer and the cheetah are working together to preserve the savanna as a system. As though the carbon, the oxygen, the hydrogen and whatnot are working together to preserve the atmosphere as a system. As though everything is working together. If we think about the last week's metaphor, in a huge orchestra playing a symphony that is composed by a magnificent composer who is also conducting the orchestra. Subhanallah. İşte bütün bu haller 2 kere 2 4 eder derecesinde kat'i gösterir ki şu sarayı acibin ustasına, yani şu garip alemin sahibine her şey musahhardır. Her şey onun hesabına çalışır. Her şey ona bir emirber nefer hükmündedir. Her şey onun kuvvetiyle döner. Her şey onun emriyle hareket eder. Her şey onun hikmetiyle tanzim olunur. Her şey onun keremiyle muavenet eder. Her şey onun merhametiyle başkasının imdadına koşar, yani koşturulur. Ey arkadaş, haddin varsa buna karşı bir söz söyle. So we said the conclusion. This is the continuation of the conclusion, and the reality of the situation in the story, which of course mimics the reality of the situation in the cosmos that we live in. So all these states, this cooperation, this assistance, this as though they see each other, all these states show as definitely as 2 times 2 equal 4 that everything is subjugated to the master of this amazing palace. If there is volition, and these things do not have volition, and they are acting in unison, in harmony together, then that means that There is an owner of that evolution, and that's one. And that's the master of this amazing palace. That is, to the owner of this marvelous realm, everything works on his account. Right? Everything works on his account. Everything is in effect his obedient soldiers. They obey him. Everything happens with his power. So it is his power. They don't have power in and of themselves. They are just becoming, or they are just appearing to be vehicles of power. And that's what being a soldier means. Being a soldier does not mean that the soldier is using its bodily power. No, that's not the case. Everything is in effect his obedient soldiers, right? That's why we are saying in effect. Everything happens with his power. This is not in effect. This is clear. Everything moves under his command. Everything is organized with his wisdom, because there is wisdom. Things are serving purposes. Everything provides assistance with his munificence, right? So there's assistance. Assistance indicates munificence. I need something, the tree is providing it to me. And the tree is being generous in giving what it has to me. Right? The tree produces 1,000 apricots every year, and I go pick them up all. And it doesn't say, you took all my apricots last year, I'm not going to give you apricot this year. No. I mean, there are other reasons why it may not be giving apricots, because it may not be provided with what it needs. But once it is provided with what it needs, it does not say, no, I'm not talking to you anymore, I'm not going to give you apricots to you. You took everything last year, you didn't leave any to me. No, it's generous, it's munificent. Now, it is not the tree that's munificent, because the tree does not have any agency. Everything provides assistance with his munificence. Now, because we are in the story, we are not capitalizing the his here. We are still talking about that fictional owner. But of course, when we move to the reality of this, we will see that everything provides assistance with his, God's munificence. Everything rushes to the aid of others with his mercy. That is, they are made to rush. Oh, friend, say something against this if you dare. I mean, that's of course a rhetorical statement. You won't be able to say anything. You won't be able to say anything that makes sense in the face of this. Right? People say things. People say things, but what they say does not make sense. People say things because they are stubborn. People say things because they don't want to follow any external power. They don't follow the rules and regulations of the owner of the palace or the creator of the cosmos. People say things, but what they say is not something that makes sense. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة الصلوات